New video from an alt-right conference held in Washington over the weekend is raising questions this morning. Now, the group was celebrating, they say, Donald Trump's victory when Richard Spencer, the president of the National Policy Institute, that's what they call themselves, said this.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
And you can see the people in the audience responding with straight arm salutes. Spencer has said his organization is not a neo-Nazi movement and that the salutes were meant to be ironic. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Donald Trump says the president-elect denounces racism of any kind, and he was elected because he will be a leader for every American. Roland Martin is the host and managing editor of NewsOne, and he's now with us. And you just, Roland, interviewed Richard Spencer. Curiously, he refers to himself as alt-right, not a white nationalist. How does he make the difference between the two?
Well, frankly, what he essentially confirmed, he is a white nationalist. He said he prefers alt-right, but then went on to explain that, oh, I'm concerned about my people, folks of who are of European descent, and I'm fighting for my people. That's white nationalist. Now, he did say he's not a white supremacist, but he danced around the whole issue of being a white nationalist.
You've interviewed presidents, you've interviewed the candidates. I'm curious, Richard Spencer, why he decided to talk to you.
Well, this is the second time I've interviewed him. We talked to him earlier in the campaign. I had one of the White Lives Matter activists on, and in my career I've interviewed Klansmen as well. And look, here's a guy who is trying to get maximum exposure for what they're doing, and so he is certainly someone who is to the extreme. But what's important for us in media to understand is that there are a significant number of people who also maintain the same perspective, and that what we're seeing is this sort of loss in white culture. In 2009, when I was at CNN, John Avlon of the Daily Beast and I were talking, and I told him, I said, John, what we're about to face with the election of President Barack Obama is the beginning stages of white minority resistance. As America becomes more a majority minority, you're going to see this. And that's what we're seeing. And see, we're even normalizing it by calling it alt-right. What does that even mean when for the last 40, 50 years, we've called it white nationalists or white supremacists?
Well, Roland, we're both from Texas. We covered the militia and we covered all of what happened after the Oklahoma City bombing. And to your point, I think a lot of average people are like, what is the alt-right? And is that some media-made word? No, it's what white nationalists use as basically a marketing campaign.
Yes, it allows for them to be able to, it's nicer, it's cleaner, it's more acceptable as opposed to white nationalists. I don't use the term alt-right. I call it what it is, white nationalists, because that's what it speaks to.
Let me play what Richard Spencer said in the interview about European identity.
Whenever anyone sticks up for European identity, whenever they say, I want to stick up for us, for our people, they're always called a collection of names, Nazi, KKK, Southern Confederate, etc. I think a lot of people just want to throw it back in their enemies' faces.
But that's
natural.
Throw it back in their enemies' faces. And he also talked about people are paying a lot of attention to them, which is your point about why he would come on to be interviewed by you, knowing you're an exceptional journalist, but also knowing that it's going to set off heat. But you have the president-elect over the weekend tweeting feverishly about the Hamilton situation. His team has released this statement, even emailing me, reminding me of this statement that he's denounced racism, but no flurry of tweets from the president-elect regarding this alt-right, which, to their point, everyone is watching. And if he saw what happened at Hamilton, and if he was up watching SNL to comment on the performance of Alec Baldwin, why not a Twitter storm on this? What do you think?
Because he has been pushing these buttons, because he is speaking to white nationalism. He is speaking to that, and that's why. And so when you look, I even asked Richard Spencer about the whole how Hitler, he went, no one said that, and then he tried to tell me only 4 or 5 people. He literally said, well, they were exuberant. This guy was dismissing literally the Nazi salute. No, this is all by design. President-elect Donald Trump must condemn it. He must say it is shameful, but he's playing footsie here, and that's the real problem here. And the reason I wanted Richard Spencer on the show, because I want people to understand that this is what we're about to face, not in the next 2 or 4 years, but the next 30 years.
Just quickly, you know that people will say we're giving them attention, that this room was filled with about 100, when, you know, the other groups, hopefully, that don't want this divisiveness are far more than them. What do you say to people who say, you know, you guys are covering this just for the ratings and so on?
No, bottom line is you and I live, we're from Texas, we've been across this country. The sentiments of Richard Spencer have been expressed in millions across this country. We want to deny it, but it's there. And like I told him point blank, as a black man, Latinos, we're not going anywhere. It's our country too. You better get used to sharing power and get used to sharing resources because we're not going anywhere, Richard.
Well, a part of, I guess, his platform is to have minorities voluntarily leave. He does not.
Well, I told him he can leave.
Thank you very much.
I told him he can leave anytime he wants to.
Roland Martin, thank you very much. People can see much more of Roland's interview, of course, on TV1, and it's all over social media. Thank you, Roland.
Thanks a lot.